You have to live and breathe it and just let it take over your life and be obsessed with every single aspect of it. Fight your hardest, fight your heart out. If you quit, you can't teach that. So don't ever quit. No matter how hard it gets, do not let that habit ever get into you. I am Liam Harrison. I'm an 8-time World Muay Thai champion from the Bad Company Gym in Leeds. I've been training around 25 years-ish now. Turned pro when I was 14, had close to 120 professional fights. I was 13-year-old the first time I walked through these doors, and I was younger and stuff, and there were some pretty rough kids around the area and stuff like that, and I thought I don't want everyone to end up being one of them kids who gets bullied and stuff like that. So I came down here just to learn how to defend myself, basically. And the second I walked through these gym doors, I just fell in love with it straight away. Before my 16th birthday, I won my first professional title and had about 8 pro fights, because with Leidens when I was 14. I had my first pro fight a week before my 15th birthday. I was 14 with Leidens, said I was 16. So I turned up to the weigh-in, got on the scales, I looked at this kid, I thought, he don't look 16, he looks a bit older. I've watched him get off the scales, walk out the building, and he jumped in his Golf GTI and drove himself off. I thought, oh, he's definitely not 16. He ended up being 19, but I ended up knocking him out in first minute at first round. And then once you've done something like that, and it were on quite a big show at the time, in a big sports arena hall, and at those shows were probably some of the biggest ones in the country, and I was right down at the bottom of the card, but they were busy shows and everyone saw me do it. So once I've done that, there's then no way I can go back to fighting kids and juniors who were my own age. So that were it then. I was just fighting grown men from then on. So now everyone's looking to get to one championship, and now they are paying like ridiculously well. If you're on one championship, you're a superstar. You're fighting live on Sky Sports, you're fighting in 15,000 sold out arena. Everyone's going to know who you are, and you're getting paid well, and there's chances for massive bonuses. And my career, if I'd have gone to one championship, say in my mid-20s when I were in my prime, and I was smashing a lot of like the top ties to bits when I was around that age, I wouldn't have had a long career, because there's no longevity in the way I fight in 4-ounce gloves. My hands would have been smashed to pieces. I'd have probably been brain dead, and I've had the career that I've had now. So I'm glad that I did get to still be part of one championship, still part of the biggest stage, and have some of the craziest fights. I won Fight at Year on 2022 and things like that on one championship, and I won a big bonus. I'm glad I got to do all that, but I'm glad it's at the back end of my career as well, because if I were fighting the way I fight, if I were doing that all the time in 4-ounce gloves, I don't think I'd have had the longest career that I've had. I wouldn't have made it to 39 anyway. It wasn't scary the first time I went to train, because I was just getting used to everything. What was scary was when I went to live there when I was 18, 19. I went to live there and I lived in the gym with the ties. I lived on a mattress on the floor. And for the first 6 months, I got bullied. I was the only white guy who was living in the gym. I was living on a mattress on the floor like they were doing. And I think they were just like, oh, this guy's moving into our spot. And they just beat me up every single day. Like the old cliche saying, respect is earned, and I had to earn it out there. That like helped build me as a man that I've become, because like my mental strength, and I've taught me not to quit and things like that, because there were many times in that like I just thought, what am I doing here? I'm just getting battered every single day. They don't even talk to me most of the time. I know there's a language barrier, but they weren't really paying attention to myself. And then after about 6 months, when we were sparring and stuff like that, one day I just noticed, thought, hang on a minute, I'm holding my own here every day. And then after that, they started to like, they'd sit down and they'd eat with me, and they'd sit around and they'd chat with me, and we'd go off and do things together with the ties, instead of me just going off with the other Western fighters and stuff like that. And I got like welcomed into their culture and their way of life and everything like that. But again, I had to earn the respect to doing that. And that was a very, very tough 6 months. And every time I won a fight, they'd be like buzzing and happy, and I got welcomed in. I mean, there's so many fighters who would probably just think, oh, you know what, I'm off to another gym where there's more Western fighters or something like that. Got out with it. But I was completely out of my comfort zone, and I think that's a life lesson for Everyone, like, if you want to excel in something, you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Before the fight, I said to him, he said, are you all right? I said, I'm nervous. I said, I don't want to, I said, I want to impress everyone in gym, and I want to impress you. And he said, listen, win, lose, draw, it doesn't matter. As long as you fight your hardest, fight your heart out, don't quit, and enjoy yourself. I said, that's all that matters. And I went, do you know what? It just took a weight off my shoulder. I thought that's some of the best advice I've ever had. Because as long as you can look yourself in the mirror after the fight and go, you know what, you didn't quit then, you didn't give up. Yeah, you might have lost, but it don't matter, the better man beat you on the night. On to the next one. As long as you can do that, the result doesn't matter. As long as you get in and out of that ring, after the fight, you look yourself in the mirror and you go, you give everything, you couldn't do anything else. The result doesn't really matter then, because you know you give it all. And I went on, I won the fight in round 4, and then I had about 5 more fights for the gym in Thailand, and I won all them, all on the bounce as well, and had a bit of a good run. And then I had a fight in Rajadamnern in one of the stadiums, and we were against like a top ranked fighter, and that was my first loss in Thailand. When I moved over there, it was about survival, because I went over there with just the right little bit of money, and then I had to fight to pay. I had to pay the gym owner to stay there. I had to fight for my money to pay my rent. And then when I moved out of the gym, just into my own little box room in a little apartment next door to it, I obviously had to pay the rent there. It wasn't like I was getting big purses or big wages back then. I want a big name like I am now. I had to fight my way up to get everyone to know me. When I first went to Thailand, I had a big name in England and around Europe, but no one knew me over there. So I started at the bottom, and my purses were pretty small. So I had to fight like sometimes twice a month to get that money, just so I could pay my rent and stuff. And then even when I'm not fighting for that much money, I was gambling on myself just to bump my money up and things like that. So I told a story on the last one where I bet on myself and lost all my own money, lost all the trainers' monies in the gyms, and then I had to fight again 3 days later. So that's the type of like the craziness that I was doing back then. And I think to myself sometimes, I wish social media were around back then to catch some of this stuff that I was doing. But then I think to myself, well, I'm actually glad it wasn't, because if it was and I was getting extra money in that, I wouldn't have all these crazy stories. I've got life experience. I knew that if I wanted to beat these Thai champions, I was never actually going to do it unless I learned to fight how they fight. So yeah, I wanted to be surrounded by top fighters who've all had over 100 fights. But like I said, like I'd had 29 unbeaten, and then I got smashed to pieces off that Thai, and that were it. Well, then like it took, I'm gonna say it didn't take long, to be fair. I knew straight away then, like I knew what I wanted to do. I'd already set my goals out, and I knew where I wanted to go, and I knew I wanted to be able to hang with the best fighters on the planet. And I knew that if I didn't do this, I'm not going to be able to do that. So if I wanted to achieve the goal, that were it. It were only one thing I had to do. So it were either go do this, get out your comfort zone, get back to the bottom of the pile, or don't achieve what you want to achieve. I had 3 close fights with the best fighter of all time, Sanchai. So to be able to say I had 3 fights with him where I pushed him right to the wire, and then ever since that, when I were at that age as well, consistency is key. I was at elite level from being 20 years old. I'm 39 now. I had my last fight and won championships against another legend of the sport. So to do it for 20 years, no one else has done that from England. So that's something I'm really proud of. Obviously, I've lost to quite a few fights along the way, but when you're at that level constantly and you're fighting as often as I were doing, you're going to do, there's too many ways to lose, and you're fighting elite Thai champions. Look, like the Thais will have a record of 200 fights, 150 wins, 50 loss. I think I've got about 28 losses on my record, 29 losses, something like that. Most of them have come towards the back end of my career when I've slowed down a little bit, but all the others are at elite level. Or if I did something stupid and stepped out of my weight class, which I did a lot of times. But yeah, I'm proud that I can say I think I was 18 or 19 first time I fought at that world elite level. And although I got smashed to bits that one, ever since then I stayed there and I kept the consistency all the way to being 39.
How long have you been training with him for?
He started with me when he was 13. It was really 3-4 months into his training that I sort of started to look and think, this kid has been, consistently never misses a session. He just comes early, does a little bit on his own, stays late, keep doing stuff on his own. Him and Andy were always training together. So taking a bit of notice there and thinking, we've got something a bit special about this kid.
So the greatest fighter of this era is a guy called Sanchai. He's absolutely ridiculous. He's the GOAT of this area. Probably 350 fights, 300 wins. I fought him 3 times, and especially one of them, I took him right to the wire. I cut him with an elbow, I bust him up with some hard punches, and we had a real war. And that is in my top 3 fights in my career, even though it's a loss. Because I took the greatest fighter of this era and greatest fighter of all time, one of the greatest fighters of all time, right to the wire. And knowing that I have his respect, he said after that fight, he said, Liam, one of my hardest fights. Knowing that I did that to one of the best fighters of all time, I can live with myself with that, whether I lost or not. So in 2022, I had a fight and won championship, and I won fight of the year, and I won a 100k bonus for it, because in the first round, I got knocked down with a head kick. You're only about a minute into the fight. I got up, he ran in and he knocked me straight back down with a punch. 3 knockdowns in this fight, you finished. I got up again and he ran in to finish me. I knocked him down, he got up, I knocked him down again, he got up, I knocked him down again. So we had 5 knockdowns in 90 seconds. One fight a year in 2022, you can watch it, Liam Harrison versus Muay Thai. And that's what I always say about that fight, don't quit. I think it's I got hit that hard on the second knockdown. If I'd have just stayed down, I don't think anyone would have batted an eyelid. You can think, well, no, he could have done about that. But I knew I could get up. I knew to myself, and even if I'd have just stayed down then, how can I look myself in the mirror after? You have to go back and then you look and say, you could probably go up then, what's going on there? But I didn't. I did get up and I ended up winning fight of the year, 100 grand bonus, and it also got me a title fight afterwards. So all the bonuses that I got from getting up and trying, like we mentioned earlier, that's when the magic happens. Like just when you think you're on the verge of losing or quitting or getting knocked out, just persevere. And like I said, something magical can happen, and it did for me in that fight. So as a fighter, you're in there, and you're in there to entertain the fans as well as like enjoy yourself and all the other things. And they pay to watch a warrior fight his heart out until he can't fight no more. So I knew that I could get up. If I'd have just stayed down, how could I look myself? Like I said, how can I look myself in the mirror, knowing that I still had a little bit left to give? And when he came in to finish me off, all it took is one shot, and the tables turned like that. Just one split second, one mistake from him, one big punch from me, and that's all it took. So knowing that I still could throw a punch, if you can land a punch in a fight, it's all it takes one. You've seen it in many fights so all over the years where people get battered from pillar to post and then one punch changes it. I know that in my head. Most people know that. And as knowing that in my head, if I didn't apply that into a fight, like, you can't look yourself in the mirror and you can't call yourself a professional fighter, because when there's people watching you to fight until the very end, until you can't fight anymore, if you don't stick to that moral obligation that you've got to these people and to yourself and to your coaches who spent all this 8 weeks training you, putting all their effort into you and killing you in the gym and spending time away from their family to be with you, if you have to turn around to them afterwards and look them in the eye knowing that you probably could have got up and give a little bit more, that's something that I don't ever want to have to do. And that's, I think, that what pushed me through. I've just bit down on my gum shield, got up, and LS9 took over. That's a warrior, someone who's pushing right to the end. Even though they know they can't win, but they still won't quit, they still keep going. And like I say, they might think they can't win, but like I said, some magic might happen if you don't quit. You know what, there's so many like prerequisites that it takes to be a fighter that you can take into everyday life. As long as you can finish at the end of the day and look yourself in the mirror and go, I had a good day then, I did all right then, you did well, well done. Just things like that. What does it take to be a fighter? Hard work, discipline, perseverance, all these things. If you do this in any walk of life, whether you want to be a fighter, a lawyer, or a musician, if you work hard at anything, that will work out in no matter what walk of life you're doing. And that's what I'll take. The discipline that fighting teaches you, it teaches you have to be disciplined, you have to persevere. Don't quit when it gets hard, no matter how tough it gets in a fight. And like you might feel like giving up and you might be getting beaten within an inch of your life. I have found if you persevere, that's when the magic happens. That goes to anything. If you are treating it like a hobby, you're not going to get to the elite levels. You have to live and breathe it, and you have to just let it take over your life and be obsessed with every single aspect of it. You can't cut any corners. You have to be up every morning running the 10K like they're doing. But yeah, you have to embrace the full aspect of everything. Because if you don't, then like I said again, you'll get found out and you won't ever be able to cut it just at that highest level. I've got a good IQ when I fight. I am trying to hurt someone. I kick hard and I punch hard and I'm throwing everything with bad intentions. So yeah, I am, as well as trying to score points, which is what this game is all about. I'm trying to hurt them and I'm trying to knock them out. I am in there to win by knockout, and you have to have that mentality, I think. Like, if you're in there just trying to score points and just like not get hurt and not pick up damage, there are some fighters who are good at that, but they're not entertaining to watch. And like I said earlier, if you want to get this good reputation and this good relationship with the fans and the crowd and you want them to love you, that's how you've got to be.
My lungs are they're screaming at me, what are you doing?
There were a fight in my mid-20s and I fought a really elite high-level Thai champion, and I just cut a few corners in training. I'd got a bit complacent and I got smashed to bits, and I was like, well, you brought all that on yourself. You've got no one else to blame here other than yourself. And I literally never ever did it again after that fight. Obviously I've had 120 fights, so and the one that I did do it in, you got found out. There's so many ways to lose in this fight, and you come across someone who's at the highest end of this game, elite level, and they ain't cutting any corners, you're gonna get found out and you're gonna get hurt. And I got absolutely smashed to pieces. Luckily we had a rematch about 6 months later, and I've put that loss correct. And then again, ever since that time, then I never ever cut any corners in training. Never. I always make sure I'm the first one through the door, the last one to leave, and I always try and set a good example for all the younger fighters, because I never ever want to have that feeling again after that fight when I was disgusted with myself, thinking, what on earth were you doing here? You've got a chance here against this top Thai champion. You were in it for a world title as well, and I thought you had a chance here to show that you are in that elite level. What if you don't ever get that chance again? Luckily, I got a rematch and I put it right. But yeah, I was disgusted with myself after that, and I vowed, I made a deal with myself in the mirror, like, you will never ever do this again, and I never did. Well, I was looking back on that yesterday, and I was looking at the highlights of that fight, and I was thinking, what were I doing in there? I said I couldn't take the punishment. I'm not surprised fighting like that. I was just getting involved in like just elbows, and I wasn't moving my head. I wasn't even trying to move. I was just content on just trying to go to war. And after having 2 years out of the ring with a horrible injury, I'm not surprised I couldn't take the punishment that I was doing in that fight, because there was no thought process in what I was doing whatsoever. I just went to war with a fighter who's renowned for going to war, and I lost at his game because I played straight into his hands. So I don't know whether I'm a bit hard on myself about not being able to take the punishment. I think that was just a ridiculous choice of how to fight that fight, but I just got caught up in it, and I thought, right, I'm gonna knock him out, and then I didn't knock him out, and I got stopped myself. But when you've got them 4-ounce gloves on, if you meet someone in the middle 50-50, that's all it is, 50-50. It's gonna be you or him, and unfortunately it was me. And I was thinking, he's fought 6 times in the last year in those gloves on one championship. He's active, he's been taking punishment. I'd been out for like nearly 2 years with a horrendous knee injury. I'd not been taking the punishment. I wasn't as sharp as I probably was going to be after a 2-year layoff. 39, And even though I felt really sharp and good in there, and then when it came down to it and we started trading, and there were some really good moments where we started training, he managed to walk through the shots and I didn't. And whether that's because I'm a little bit older and Father Time's caught up, or whether I've been out of the ring for 2 years, either way, coming back off that and coming to nearly 40 years old, I just didn't think it'd be wise for myself to be taking too much more damage in those 4-ounce gloves, which is why I laid my gloves down at the end. And as hard as that was, to know that I'll never go into that arena had 15,000 people in it. I've never known an atmosphere like it, and the ovation that I got from the American fans when I came out, like that was the biggest and the best one I've ever had in my career. And it was just a shame that it ended like that. But again, I don't think it'd be wise for me at this point to carry on taking that sort of damage in those gloves. Fighters have chapters and they've got a shelf life, and there's only so far you can go and there's only so far you can push it. My next chapter, I don't want to just think, oh, I'm done with this now, what should I do? I don't want to sit around all day. I want to be in the gym, helping all the young ones coming through. I want to be sparring with them all the time. I still want to train as hard as possible and put my own training in and keep myself fit and strong. I want to hold pads every day. I don't want to have all my hands smashed to pieces. I don't want to be that guy who can't string a sentence together. I had to think about what I was going to do in the second part of my life, because I've been prepping for this for a while. I knew it was going to come, and as hard as it was laying them gloves down, I think it was the right decision. There's too many ways to lose in this. I've had nearly 30 losses on my record, but I've had like 92 wins, 8 world titles, fought all the best fighters on the planet along the way. When you're fighting that regular, there's going to be factors coming in. Some fights you're not going to go in 100%. You might have picked up a few knocks in training, a few niggles. It's not like it is now where you're fighting for loads of money. Back then I wasn't fighting for loads of money or fighting, and I had to fight regular to keep my income stream coming. The result didn't really matter, because other than that one fight we discussed earlier, I could always get out of the ring and say, you know what, you did everything you could then. You were beaten by a better man. And like I said, that doesn't bother me. If I have to take a loss to someone who's better than me on the night, knowing I've trained my hardest and knowing I've fought my hardest, I just got outgunned on the night, I can live with that. Fight your hardest, fight your heart out, enjoy yourself, and everything else doesn't matter. Like I said, as long as you get out of the ring knowing you've given it all, that's okay. You can look yourself in the mirror, because you can go back to the gym, and if your technique's a bit off, you can work on it. If you got swept a few times, you can work on it. If you got outscored on points, you can learn how to score the points. If you quit, you can't teach that. You've either got it or you won't. So don't ever quit, not once, no matter how hard it gets. Do not let that habit ever get into you. Don't ever, because once it's in, it's in. Always persevere, and like we said earlier, that's when the magic will happen. Not being the guy under the lights and having that buzz of getting your hands raised, because no, that's a drug on earth that nothing can compare to. And that's what I've been chasing since I was 14, like getting your hands raised. That's the drug. Like, you're just chasing it and chasing it and chasing it, and that's what's hard to let go. But at the same time, I'm not as arrogant enough to think I can just keep going and keep winning, and I know I'm slowing down. I know I'm getting a little bit older. I know my reactions are a little bit slower, and like I said, I don't want to be that guy who starts getting knocked out. And you see guys like they're doing it all the time, like someone like Tony Ferguson in UFC and stuff. I'd like him to see him retire, but he just refuses, and he just won't stop, and he keep going and going. And I don't want to be that guy who just keeps where everyone else is saying, hey, he should probably retire. I want to go out on my own terms. What happens to fighters is they're under the lights all the career, they're that guy, and then all of a sudden people forget you like that. Because there's always someone, as you leave, there's someone who just takes your space, and then he's the guy, and you're sort of like left like, oh, well, I'm still here, I'm still not fighting, but they don't care. People want to see you in that ring, smashing someone to bits or getting smashed to bits. That's what they want. And it's sad that a lot of fighters, they'll just get pushed out and they ain't got anything else then, and that's why a lot of them get lost. A lot of them turn to drugs, a lot of them turn to drink. And I think that's why it's important that I've spent all this time sorting all these different things out, where I'm going to have all these different ways to put my energy into, like the new gym, helping all the fighters, coaching in the new gym. My seminars, I'll still be able to travel, I'll still be able to teach, still be able to coach. I've built a really good reputation for myself as a coach over the last few years. And you know what, it was tough doing that, as well as being a professional fighter, traveling and doing seminars and helping other people and going to other gyms, as well as trying to be in a fight camp. That was tough, but it's going to all be worth it when I retire, because at least I've got that to fall back on, and everyone knows how good a coach I am now. I'm a former WBC Muay Thai champion. We are fighting for the WBC Diamond Belt, which there's only 10 fighters on the planet who've got it. All the other ones who have it are elite level Thai champions, and I think there's a French guy and maybe a Japanese guy. So for me to join these elite level guys that only, it's like a secret club that only a few people can get in, do you know what I mean? So for me to join that at the last part of my career, this means everything to me, especially to do it in front of my own crowd in England as well. So the Spanish fighter I'm fighting, he's no pushover. He's a former WBC world champion. So he's going to want this accolade because it's a massive, massive accolade. The only way I see him winning is if he comes to that ring with a shotgun or something like that. And even then I'll find a way to win. I refuse to be beaten on my last fight in front of my own crowd for this belt. Dad's my biggest supporter, and he couldn't get out to the Denver fight. That was another reason I can't have a fight without him being in there. We're there in my first ever fight. He's followed me to Japan, he's come to Italy, he's come all over the world watching me. I thought I can't have my last fight without him there.
Marek Health made this documentary and this interview possible, and they're trying to help support the cause of inspiring change. If you're ready to take control of your health, go to marekhealth.com and use code Mulligan for 10% off. The link's down below.